You're with Julian on the Brown Note and Eurovision or Bust. How the Eurovision Song Contest, which has become a bastion of hypocrisy, is setting itself up for being the largest protest about what Israel's doing in Gaza in the entire conflict, and deservedly so. I've spoken before about how hypocritical all of these organisations are, the sporting bodies like the Olympics or the people that look after football, who shove gay rights and inclusivity and women's rights down your throat and then are happy to go and have a World Cup in Qatar or invite the Saudis to the table, whilst hypocritically maintaining these blanket bans on people like Russia. It just sticks in the throat too much. And Eurovision, no organisation tries to make out it's holistic and pro everyone's rights, just not if you're Palestinian. Particularly as they have Israel as a contestant in the Eurovision Song Contest, and back in 2019 actually had the Eurovision Song Contest hosted in Israel, just miles from what's one of the largest open-air prisons in the world. This has been blowing up. There have been a number of countries and artists from many countries expressing a desire to actually boycott the event. That doesn't seem like it's going to happen, but they're setting themselves up for an incredible protest, which I don't think people are actually talking about enough. And I'm glad, because it's going to take them by storm. Someone I spoke to online today said that the Icelandic community tried to get a Palestinian artist to represent them at this year's final, and was controversially came second in their recruitment process, which was a lot of people in Iceland were up in arms. And the Israeli entry as well caused massive consternation by the fact that its lyrics referred to the October 7th attack by Hamas on Israel. Israel's public broadcaster has requested changes to the lyrics of a song submitted for this year's Eurovision contest. Organisers barred it last week for breaking rules on political neutrality. Israeli broadcaster Kan had, ironic after the last song, had pledged not to alter the lyrics of October Rain, an apparent reference to the Hamas attack on Israel on October 7th. They include lines, "There were all good children, every one of them, and who told you boys don't cry, hours after hours, and flowers, life is not a game for the cowards." The reference to flowers was significant according to Israel's Hayom newspaper, as it often is used to denote war fatalities. I mean, the hypocrisy of Eurovision, they claim to be all-inclusive and breaking down prejudice, but they're actually inviting someone who's committing genocide to the event. They claim this is nothing like what Russia's doing in Ukraine, but the rest of the world can see clearly that it's hypocrisy to say that it isn't. They say that they're not political, yet they barred Russia. Speaking to ABBA's Bjorn Ulvaeus on BBC Radio 4's Today programme, which the Swedish songwriter was acting as a guest editor, Eurovision executive Martin Österdahl was asked if the decision to exclude Russia had been hard to make. He said it was, and it still is. It's also that when you look back in time, you see that the Eurovision Song Contest is like a logbook of what's happened in Europe, but also what is the mood and sentiment in Europe and the social context of Europe at the time. When we say we are not political, what we should always stand up for are the basic ultimate values of democracy. Now, how do you stand up for the values of democracy and not be political? Are you not standing up for a political thing? Is democracy not a political thing? And how do you equate standing up for democracy when you ban Russia, when the Palestinian people have none? Do they have the same democratic rights as the people in Ukraine, or have they been equally or much worse removed from their democratic rights, let alone their human rights? Are you not being a tad hypocritical to say that Russia is an affront to democracy. But Israel is a democracy despite occupying the Palestinian people? And there are artists like Nick Cave and Radiohead, these esteemed artists that are right on, who have defended in really quite weak ways playing concerts in Israel and said, this is about art, this is about fans, this isn't political. But then you hear Israel's president, Isaac Herzog, calling on the song that's being represented to be adjusted because he emphasized that it is precisely at the time when those who hate us are seeking to repress and boycott the state of Israel that we must raise our voice in international forums. It seems to me if they want to raise their voice in international forums, they regard the Eurovision Song Contest as a political forum. Musicians from other countries have called for Israel to be suspended over the war in Gaza, including Iceland, Finland, Norway, Denmark and Sweden, with several pointing out that Russia has been disqualified since the invasion of Ukraine 2 years ago. Eurovision has argued that the situations in Ukraine and Gaza are different, probably not for the dead children, I'd say. This is from 2019 from a writer called Awa Mahadawi, and she was talking about when it was held in Israel. This has been bubbling away for years. Eurovision has always been an exercise in bad taste, but this year's event takes things to a new extreme. If you want to enjoy the kitschy song contest, which will take place from the 14th to the 18th of May in Tel Aviv, Israel, then you've got to ignore the bloody political context that surrounds it. Indeed, Israel is so intent on keeping Eurovision politics free that anyone it says might disrupt the event will be blocked from entering the country. One of the most frustrating things about being Palestinian, and I'm half Palestinian myself, is that there seems to be no acceptable way to defend your humanity or protest against your oppression. Calls to boycott Eurovision, for example, have been decried as divisive. Last month, celebrities including Stephen Fry and Sharon Osbourne stating Eurovision's spirit of togetherness is under attack by those calling for a boycott, because it's being held in Israel, subverting the spirit of the contest and turning it from a tool of unity into a weapon of division. And those have come forward, that was 2019, but those same people have come forward again. Helen Mirren said, the current round of fighting is not a war that Israel wanted or started. Are you absolutely that blind, Helen Mirren? Are you insane? Have you not followed this conflict from 1947 and you say this is not fighting a war that Israel wanted or started? Are you mad in your bubble that you cannot understand the full context of what's going on here? Please don't wave your rainbow flags in our faces, Eurovision, not when you are a party to something that in the future will be regarded as apartheid and genocide.